Bad thing is going to happen. The sudden words made me gasp. Bad thing is going to happen? What does that mean? It happened on my way to a prenatal checkup, cradling my full-term belly. While waiting for the light to change at a crosswalk, an elderly woman next to me said those words. I didn't know this woman. I was already anxious about giving birth, and now this person was saying such things. How insensitive can someone be? Before I could express my anger, the woman continued. At this rate, you'll end up as a single parent. She spoke quietly, calmly, as if predicting the future. Amid the sound of cars passing by, my husband's name floated to my mind. Just then, the light turned green. With a sense of dread, I couldn't stay still and called my husband. Please, answer the phone. I waited with a prayer-like feeling, and finally, the ringing stopped.
Hello, what's wrong?
The usual tone of his voice brought me a moment of relief, and I said, Hey, sorry, but can you check around the house for me? Shane seemed puzzled, but when I urged him, he realized something was wrong. I listened as he called out to his father and went outside, leaving the phone connected. Holding my breath, I focused on the sounds coming from the phone. After a while, I heard 2 short gasps from them.
Who's there? Who's at our place?
I heard the sound of running footsteps and Shane yelling, Wait. It seemed he was running desperately, as the only sound coming through the phone was the wind rushing past. My name is Ruby Marshall. I'm in my 30s, currently married, and living with my husband Shane.
Ruby, I bought some cake. Let's eat together.
Once a month, Shane stops by the cake shop near the station like this. Wow, blueberry cake? How cute.
It's a new flavor. I thought you'd like it.
Thank you, Shane.
No, thank you for everything.
We smiled sheepishly at each other while enjoying the blueberry cake. We're not particularly wealthy, but these little treats make us so happy. Our relationship goes back to our high school days. At that time, I had lost my parents in an accident and couldn't even go to school, spending every day in tears. During those days, Shane would bring school handouts to me. It was because our houses were close. There was always a message written in the corner of the handouts he brought. Things like "Let's play soccer" or "About the sports festival," just a simple line. Those casual words gradually became something I looked forward to. Even now, when I talk about it, Shane gets a bit embarrassed. Thanks to his support, I was able to graduate from high school. After that, we started dating, went to university, got jobs, and eventually got married. Shane's parents knew about my family situation and treated me like their own child. Ruby, is there anything troubling you? Feel free to tell me anything. Whether I was a student or after we got married, my mother-in-law Monique's words never changed. Ted, my father-in-law, was just as caring. I've always been indebted to Shane and his parents, and I feel so grateful. It was in the summer, a little over 2 years after we got married. I had been feeling unwell for days, and eventually, I even started getting dizzy. Could it be heat stroke? The heat had been severe for days, and there were warnings to be cautious of heat stroke. However, something felt off, so I went to the hospital, where I learned I was pregnant. A new life, a new family, was growing inside me. The more I thought about it, the happier I felt, almost wanting to skip. The keychain that says there's a baby in my belly, which I used to see from afar, was now in my hands, and the day had come for me to attach it to my bag. Overjoyed, I went home, prepared dinner, and waited for Shane to return.
I'm home. Huh? What's going on? Did something good happen?
Seeing me sitting at the table in the living room, Shane seemed to notice something. It was probably because I couldn't stop grinning. Lowering my voice to a whisper, I shared the news of the day. Guess what? I'm pregnant. We have a baby.
What?
He looked back and forth between my face and my belly, his eyes welling up. We have a new family member. Is there anything more joyful than this? Hearing his tearful words, I couldn't help but tear up as well, nodding repeatedly. We shared the happy news with his parents right after, and they were overjoyed. Though it was over the phone, we all savored that happy moment together. From the next day, despite being busy with work, Shane became even more attentive, making sure I didn't overexert myself. As my morning sickness worsened, I spent most of the day lying down, and Shane became quite worried. Your complexion doesn't look good. How about we live with my parents so they can help out? I wanted to say I was fine. But in reality, I wasn't fine at all. I was anemic, feeling unwell, and I feared I might not be able to meet our baby. When we explained the situation to Monique and Ted, they readily agreed. Of course, we'll support you. Right, Ted?
That's right. We're family.
Though I felt bad for burdening them, Shane and I decided to move in with his parents. About a month after we started living together, something strange happened. One day, when I returned from a checkup, there was graffiti on the house wall. At first, it was written with chalk, and I thought it was just neighborhood kids playing pranks. But each week, it got worse, and eventually, it was spray painted. Could this be some sort of harassment? When I told Shane and his parents, they all tilted their heads in confusion.
For a kid's prank, it's drawn pretty high up.
Shane, who is over 170 centimeters tall, noticed the graffiti reached up to his eye level.
But there shouldn't be anyone in the neighborhood who would do something like this.
We continued to monitor the situation, but the graffiti appeared at random times, and no one in the neighborhood saw anything. In this quiet residential area, who could be sneaking around and doing this? With no answers, the graffiti gradually escalated. One day, as we were trying to live with the unease, the graffiti started including our names. Why do they know our names? I shuddered with fear. Thinking about when and where we were being watched gave me chills. I couldn't even feel safe walking outside, so I discussed it with Shane and his parents, and we decided to install security cameras. For a few days, the cameras didn't capture anything unusual, and the only people passing by were the neighbors. However, on the 5th day after installing the cameras, we finally caught a shadowy figure. Early that morning, I woke up from the discomfort and groggily approached the window, where I saw something quickly move near the house. Startled, I checked the security camera and saw a man, around 170 centimeters tall, dressed entirely in black. He wore a hat pulled down low and had his face half covered with a mask. His face was unrecognizable, and I didn't recognize him. He sprayed the graffiti and quickly left. Who is that? As I stood there in confusion, Shane came over.
It's hot. I couldn't sleep well.
He had also woken up from the discomfort, but there were more pressing matters. Hey, look at this. A man with a spray can was caught on the security camera earlier. My words seemed to snap Shane out of his drowsiness, and he stared intently at the footage from the security camera. As he watched the whole sequence of the man leaving, Shane muttered that he might know who it was. He pointed out the man's average build, the baggy t-shirt, and the way he grabbed the hem of his shirt.
Could it be? Do you remember Kenny Green?
Kenny Green. I repeated the name, trying hard to recall.
Remember that guy who lived next door to us in the apartment? The one who dressed like a musician.
What? That guy? The word musician brought back memories. Shortly after Shane and I started living together, we had rented a cheap apartment. Our neighbor at that time was Kenny Green, and when we went to greet him after moving in, he seemed like an ordinary student. He wore baggy sweatshirts and kept fidgeting with the hem of his clothes. We had a dispute with him once over noise, which was caused by his loud music played early in the morning. He blared rock music at ear-splitting volumes in the dark hours before sunrise. Although not every day, the frequent noise made it difficult for Shane and me to get enough sleep. We started to go to work sleep-deprived. The growing irritation became harder to bear. As the days dragged on, Shane finally had enough and went to complain. Kenny, however, became enraged.
I want to listen to Summertime Blues. What's wrong with that?
I'm asking you to lower the volume.
Then it's not rock anymore.
And it doesn't need to be early in the morning. It's disrupting our sleep.
Rock is meant for early mornings.
His claims were incomprehensible, and despite being in English, nothing got through. His shouting and tantrums were childish and only intensified. Eventually, some other residents came out, as he became uncontrollable, spewing abusive language. He wouldn't listen even when spoken to directly. It seemed likely that such problems would continue. Thinking about it made me anxious and depressed. We called the management company, asking them to mediate this trouble, and the next day, a middle-aged manager came by. He sternly warned Kenny in the neighboring apartment about the noise, stating it was a breach of the rules and that failure to comply could result in eviction. After that, the morning blasts stopped completely, and instead, there was no sound at all from his place. I remembered this clearly now. But that was years ago. We had moved out of that apartment about 4 years ago, and I remembered Kenny living in the adjacent apartment at that time. It wasn't far from my in-laws' place, so he might still be living there. Did he hold a grudge against us? If so, would it only be graffiti in the future? What if it endangered not just me but also the baby? I wasn't keen on living with such anxiety and danger. When I conveyed this to Shane, he nodded vigorously.
Let's take this footage to the police. It'll be too late if something happens to us or the baby.
We went to the police that day, explained the situation, and asked them to take action against Kenny. The officer who attended looked exasperated, as if he'd seen this before. Although he didn't say what had happened, I could guess from his expression. Since that day, there were no more graffiti incidents, and he didn't appear on our security cameras. According to the police, they had given Kenny a stern warning not to stalk us or vandalize our home. Hearing this, my mother-in-law was relieved. Kenny won't be coming around to vandalize anymore, so we can relax for now. Yeah, I replied, but deep down, I wasn't entirely reassured. Was everything really over? I wondered if he would come back in a few days. Despite my concerns, he didn't appear on the security cameras. Maybe I was overthinking it. With the graffiti mischief stopping, our peaceful days returned, and I breathed a sigh of relief. Months passed since the graffiti incident, and I reached my due date. Thankfully, the baby was growing well, and I was excited to meet them soon. My in-laws and Shane were also eagerly waiting.
Maybe tomorrow.
Seeing my husband's playful smile, I couldn't help but smile too. But truthfully, I had a bit of anxiety. Would I be able to endure the pain of labor and give birth properly? What if I didn't hear the baby's first cry? Could I really nurture a human being? The more I thought about it, the greater my anxiety grew, and I sometimes cried alone. One day, on my way to a checkup, I walked slowly, almost unconsciously. As I approached a crosswalk, I saw an elderly woman staggering. Of course, I didn't know her. She seemed to be visually impaired, tapping the ground with her cane. I hesitated, wondering if she would be startled if I spoke to her. However, since she was about to cross the red light, I decided to speak up. The light is still red. To my surprise, the elderly woman didn't seem shocked at all and simply said, "Oh, I see," and stopped. "Thank you very much." As we stood together for a while, the elderly woman suddenly turned her face towards me. She gazed at my protruding belly, stared for about 10 seconds, and then said, "That child, it's not going to be okay." What? I was taken aback by her sudden comment. Not okay? What did she mean? Before I could say anything, the elderly woman continued. "If things continue like this, you'll end up as a single parent." As cars whizzed by, for some reason, Shane came to mind. At that moment, the light turned green. The image of Shane's playful smile flashed in my mind, and danger signals began flashing. My anxiety was overwhelming, and I couldn't sit still. I called Shane, who should have been working from home that day. The ringtone echoed. "Please pick up." Waiting with a prayer-like feeling, the ringing stopped.
Hello, what's up?
His voice was calm as usual, which reassured me for a moment, but I quickly said, I'm sorry, but could you check around the house?"
Why suddenly?
"Hurry up." Shane seemed puzzled, but realizing something was serious, he must have understood. I listened as Shane spoke to my father-in-law and went outside, keeping the call connected. I held my breath, focusing on the sounds on the other end. For a while, I heard Shane and Ted talking, but then I caught a short exclamation. "Ah."
Who's there?
I also heard running footsteps and shouting. Wait. It seemed someone was lurking around the house, and Shane and his father were chasing them. Shane's frantic running made the sounds on the smartphone become like the noise of wind. The sound of a sandstorm, rustling clothes, and running footsteps filled the line. Finally, it sounded like they had caught up with the person, and I heard a familiar, angry voice.
You made me lose my job. I won't forgive you. Don't think you'll be happy now.
Followed by a roar-like sound. For a while, there were clashing metal sounds and cries of "Stop. It's dangerous." I could only grip the phone with sweaty hands, my anxiety rising. The sounds of a scuffle continued, and I tried desperately to understand what was happening. There were ongoing roars, mixed with a powerful shout of "Ha!" The metal clattering sound followed by a thud, and then silence on the line. What was going on? No one said anything. I couldn't understand anything. Overwhelmed by fear, I shouted, "Shane, Shane. Answer me. Shane brought the smartphone closer to his face, breathing heavily, and called my name.
Now, Kenny.
What?
He had a knife. Kenny had a knife. And he.
Gasping for breath, he spoke in broken sentences. Kenny had a knife? Are you okay? Are you hurt? You weren't stabbed, right?
It's okay. Dad took the knife from Kenny and caught him.
He reassured me. Ted, who is usually calm, is well known in the neighborhood as a strict karate instructor. It was probably thanks to Ted that this happened. Shane said he would contact the police and hung up. I felt relieved too and looked around, only to find that the elderly woman who had been beside me just moments ago was gone. The traffic light had turned red again. It all felt like a daytime dream, as if what had just happened wasn't real. Maybe Kenny was waiting for an opportunity to break into the house and harm Shane. If that was the case, it's a chilling thought. But thanks to that old woman's words, the worst outcome was avoided. I quietly whispered a thank you in my heart. Later that day, after returning from my checkup, Shane greeted me a few meters away from our house. As soon as he saw me, he ran over with a look of relief on his face.
I'm glad you're safe. Thanks for calling earlier.
He smiled, acting as if nothing had happened, showing concern for me.
But how did you know?
Well, there was this old woman. I told him about the elderly woman I had met earlier, and we both tilted our heads in confusion. There was no blind person in either of our families, and Shane seemed not to know her either.
Anyway, Dad and I are both fine, and Kenny has been arrested, so we can relax now.
But, since he knows our address, who knows when something like this might happen again? I confessed my anxiety about continuing to live here, especially after the graffiti incident. To be honest, I want to move far away. I want to have my baby in peace and raise them in a safe environment. I want a life where no one threatens our daily peace. As I spoke, tears of anxiety welled up, and Shane nodded.
Let's talk to my parents and start preparing to move.
We explained the situation to my in-laws, and they agreed that we should move as a family to a distant place. To be honest, we were a little scared too. Moving to a new place takes courage, but given the circumstances, it was the only option. We decided to sell the in-laws' house and began preparing for the move while looking for a new place. I rolled up my sleeves, ready to dive into the work, but Monique quickly stopped me. Ruby, I'm sure you understand. She firmly reminded me not to lift or carry anything heavy. Leave that to us. You need to take care of yourself. Grateful for her kindness, I started sorting through my belongings. While packing, I came across an old photo album of my deceased parents. It was covered in dust, and the colors had faded. As I flipped through the pages, the blurry photos taken with a film camera evoked a nostalgic atmosphere. Suddenly, a photo slipped out from one of the pages, likely because the glue had worn off. I slowly bent down to pick it up, and when I saw the person in the picture, I was shocked. What? This woman. Standing beside my parents, who were holding newborn me, was the blind elderly woman from earlier, smiling. I turned the photo over and saw my father's handwriting, Ruby meeting her great-grandmother Annie for the first time. So, that elderly woman from earlier was my great-grandmother. But how could she still be alive? I grabbed my smartphone and immediately called my uncle. After a few rings, he answered in his usual relaxed tone.
Oh, Ruby, it's been a while.
I wanted to ask you something. Where is great-grandmother Annie now?
Annie? She passed away a long time ago.
His words hit me like a ton of bricks, leaving me overwhelmed with shock, disappointment, and a sense of regret. Was it my great-grandmother's ghost that I met at the crosswalk? Why didn't she say anything? Why didn't she tell me she was my great-grandmother Annie? Oblivious to my turmoil, my uncle began reminiscing about the past.
It was a hot summer day. Even at the end, she was worried about you, Ruby.
My great-grandmother?
Yes, right after your parents died in that accident. She was always concerned about you being alone.
My heart swelled with emotion, and I fought back tears.
But look at you now, doing just fine. Annie is surely watching over you from the other side.
I nodded repeatedly as I looked at the photo in my hand. Inside my belly, my baby gave a small kick. That's right, I'm about to become a mom now. Yes. Yes, that's true. I then asked my uncle where my great-grandmother's grave was, promising to visit once things settled down.
That's a good idea. I'm sure Annie will be happy.
After hanging up, tears streamed down my face. My great-grandmother had been worrying about and watching over me all along. Not just me, but also the baby in my belly, and Shane too. Realizing the depth of her love, I cried big, heartfelt tears. Thank you, great-grandmother. I'll do my best to give birth to a healthy baby. I spoke to the photo of my great-grandmother, asking her to keep watching over me. Later, we successfully found a new home and moved there without any issues. It's a place known for its strong focus on child rearing, and we've started our new life here. Before I knew it, a few months had passed since we moved. I was able to give birth to a healthy baby boy, and the moment I met him, I was overwhelmed with emotion.
Ruby, thank you. And thank you, baby, for being born.
Seeing Shane's joy, so exuberant he seemed ready to burst into dance, made me both happy and embarrassed. After discussing it with my husband, we named him Andre, and ever since we brought him home, it's been a whirlwind every day. Everything is new to us, and we're figuring it out as we go. I just changed his diaper, and he needs another one already? Reaching out with a sigh to our wailing son, I felt frustrated and ashamed that I couldn't find my child adorable when he cried so much. Babies are supposed to cry, it's their job. But when it happens this often, I can't even get to my chores, let alone take care of myself. Gradually, I started losing confidence. Maybe I'm not cut out for motherhood after all. What kind of mother thinks like that? Noticing my increasing frustration and withdrawal, my mother-in-law spoke up. Ruby, you seem tired. I'll watch Andre for a while, so why don't you take a break? She smiled warmly as she spoke. Andre was still crying, but when she gently soothed him, he stopped almost immediately. She had decades of experience as a mother, after all. I gratefully accepted her offer and took a short nap. That evening, I drank coffee in the living room with Monique. She admitted she had been concerned watching me become more and more worn out while caring for Andre. Ruby, you always try to handle everything on your own. I hadn't realized it until she pointed it out. We're here too, so don't push yourself too hard. Let's all work together. She softly held my hand, offering subtle yet comforting encouragement. Her hands felt gentle and warm. I never knew a mother could feel so dependable. Thank you, Monique. From then on, I began to lean on Monique more often. Shane and Ted, prompted by her, also took the initiative in helping with household chores. Thanks to them, I was finally able to face Andre with a little more ease.
Ruby, are we running low on diapers? Should I go buy some?
Oh, yes, please. He made an okay gesture with his fingers and quietly left, perhaps trying not to disturb Andre, who was asleep in my arms. I was incredibly grateful for the support of my family, who all pitched in to help with childcare. It's still challenging, but we're doing our best every day. As time passed and things settled down with childcare, Shane, Andre, and I visited a certain church. Shane carried Andre, who seemed to be in a particularly good mood that day. We were there to visit a grave, having learned from my uncle that my great-grandmother's grave was here. When we arrived at the gravestone, we cleaned it, offered flowers, and prayed. The white lilies stood tall and proud, while a gentle breeze quietly passed by. Andre giggled happily in the wind. Great-grandmother, it's been a while. Thank you for what you did that day. I quietly offered my gratitude at her grave. I'm not alone anymore, so you can rest easy. There was no reply. The gravestone stood there silently, and only the peaceful flow of time continued. Suddenly, Andre started to fuss. Huh? What's wrong? Are you hungry? Just as Shane tried to soothe him, a gust of wind swept through, gently brushing against Andre's cheek. He immediately stopped crying and stared curiously at the gravestone. I'm sure it was my great-grandmother responding to us. It felt like she was telling us she's always watching over us. How did you enjoy this story? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video.